in our discussions, we've been chewing over, we talk about change a lot, and you're obviously deeply into the aspect of change, the future framework for law firms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested about whether we see a curiosity in law firms and around them about the idea of change itself, whether change is important or relevant, that idea of curiosity about it. And I wondered what you see when you take your framework out to talk to owners of law firms.
Well, okay, so that's interesting. So the way the framework, I think we've touched on this in previous conversations, but there's a bit of a continuum there, right? Or there's a bit of a line of where people are at. And this broader question you've posed is interesting because some are innately curious, and that's just the way they've been. Others look to see things changing, patterns changing around them, or signs of Armageddon. I mean, some people will leave it to the last minute, right? The captain sinks with the ship. So the framework really is an attempt to try and bridge as many people who aren't necessarily curious, but or are maybe practical. Like it's supposed to approach multiple people, as many people as possible. So that's why it stays at a conceptual framework level, but can then, when applied, be quite practical. What I'm finding is that people are coming to me, and that sort of that's one sign, right? That's a sign. Yeah. But what I'm understanding is that, really the people who want to do something about it will start to talk about it. And those people are probably categorized as like first movers, people who are either curious or perhaps have a more acute pattern recognition and starting to see anomalies in the daily life of what it is to run this business in law. So I haven't made too much of an effort to push it to people who are not ready to listen, but I have, in one sense, made every effort to make it accessible to everyone. So I've open published as, like, if people come across it and it tickles their fancy or it makes them think, then it's done its job. That's probably the step one. If it's made people sit back and reflect and think of a new possibility or a new way or as a solution to what they're already seeing around them, which is like, there's all these people coming at us trying to sell us a product. How does this all fit into what we've been doing for 100 years or longer? That idea of the partnership model, right? Yep. How does that fit in? And then going, there's no way that all fits in, and then coming across this and saying, oh, this is at the moment one of the only, if not the only, solution to figuring how it all fits in, right? But it also requires people to reimagine how their entire business flow would work over time. It can be iterative. That's, again, it's because it's a conceptual framework. It's in its application. You can apply it to a single vertical or silo. As much as I dislike that concept, it can be applied to a single process, or it can be applied firm wide, or you can build a firm from scratch based off of it. So it's malleable. But it's
interesting. I think, I was interested that you were moved, having followed, the traditional path of, school, go to uni. I guess did you do a law degree?
Yes, law degree and trained and admitted. Yeah. And
then admitted. So following all of that, and you're still just a young thing, that you would be moved to create your own organization. And it fits with conversations I've been having where it's pretty usual that if I'm talking about the future possible, this idea of future possible selves, almost future possible, or what's your organization going to be like?
Right.
Quite often I'll hear, well, just tell us what to do from the lawyers, just tell us what to do. And that's, for me, this is where it actually needs some people to be able to do a leap of imagination
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the bit that feels natural to me, that you say to somebody, well, let's just start thinking about hypothesizing about what the future could be.
Yes.
And perhaps that's where you and I, we were talking earlier, you and I are obviously naturally closer to the idea of wanting to try new things and being happy to push ourselves into a weird, uncomfortable space to do that. But we're working with a market who feel, you said earlier, it's all about precedent.
Yes.
You've got a market whose expertise is about precedent and risk version of risk mitigation.
Looking back and change, and if change does occur at all, it's iterative. Yeah. And so the question becomes, what happens when the environment around this culture presents itself as fundamentally changing? And when I say fundamentally, it's not to wipe clean what's been done for 100 years or longer. What it means is just the way it's been done is fundamentally changing, both from the expectation of people my age growing up and what they would expect, because their parallel industries provide that expectation. So in the sense that, it would be silly to ask now whether it's safe to use your credit card online to order groceries. It's silly to ask that now. I think it'll also be silly to consider that you can't have a portal and log in, and that's what we want. Like that, it's silly to think that we wouldn't want the transparency, fixed price, and a clear indication of where things are at in a convenient way.
And perhaps that feels, that then starts to comes back to that question of the curiosity. If that's what we all experience in our everyday lives, I am addicted to my mobile phone. I'll pick my phone up. I will,
right there,
order stuff immediately from it.
Yeah.
It talks to PayPal. I don't have to think about, whatever.
Yeah, you don't have to memorize a credit card number anymore.
If I want to understand what's happening on the bank account, I don't ring the bank, pretty much. I'll look online. If I want to, whatever. And all of that's becoming smarter and smarter. Then for me, I think it's that interest. There is something curious happening in the community of people that we're both working with to say where, and I don't think this isn't about intellect. This is about, I don't know what it's about. I just feel like we're not putting maybe it's just more and more of conversations like this to say, isn't it strange that it is hard to get these conversations? And isn't it strange that it's taking so much time? It's 3 decades for me. It's what?
Okay.
How many years for you? Bless you.
Well, I mean, what do we? Oh, sorry, involvement in the law.
Yeah, but also talking about
in practice, it's a couple. It's less than a couple.
Yeah.
It's less than a year. In study, it's 4. Yeah, 4 or 5.
Different ends of the spectrum. That for decades, I've been part of the community that's been going into practices to say, here's new stuff. It all makes eminent sense. It's all about ROI, and it's still largely the same struggle to help law firms through the process of imagining that new possible future.